How do you write? Do you sit down at a desk, open up your laptop and bang out an email or message using your trusty keyboard? Well, if that's the case, then you have it pretty easy. Just think about all the people who came before you and the tools they had to use to put pen to paper, so to speak. Writing has been an important part of human civilization for thousands of years, and over that time, we have developed all kinds of tools to help us write faster, more accurately, and with less pain. Today, we're going to take a look back at some of the most popular writing tools from throughout history, starting with one of the earliest, the quill. The quill was the go-to writing instrument for hundreds of years, first appearing sometime during the prehistoric period, and then experiencing a surge in popularity during the Middle Ages. A quill is simply a large, stiff feather, usually from a goose or swan, that has been stripped of its barbs and cut to a sharp point. To use a quill, you would dip it into an ink bottle, and then use it to write on whatever surface you desired. The wax tablets were popular during the Middle Ages. The biggest benefit of the quill was that you could reuse it again and again by simply dipping it back into the ink. But because the nib or point of the quill could break off in the wax, the writer would often end up smearing ink everywhere. Not exactly the most efficient method of writing, but as the centuries passed, new materials were discovered that helped writers achieve their goals. In the 15th century, for example, people started using metal nibs that were shaped like the point of a needle. These were attached to quills, but they allowed for much finer, more precise writing. During this same period, paper became widely available in Europe, making writing easier than ever before. Paper was made from linen rags or hemp, which made it expensive and somewhat rare. But as the printing press started churning out books and pamphlets, more paper was needed to satisfy the mass. This led to paper becoming cheaper and more common, which meant that writing was no longer something that only the wealthy elite could afford to do. The quill remained popular through the 18th century, but it had stiff competition. In the 1600s, the fountain pen started to appear, and it offered several advantages over the quill. For starters, the nib was housed inside a decorative metal or bone shaft, which not only looked nicer, but also prevented it from drying out as quickly. Some fountain pens even featured a rubber gasket that could suck up ink from a bottle and then stop automatically when the bottle was empty to prevent the pen from leaking. The main disadvantage of the fountain pen was that it could unwrite as fast or as legibly as the quill, and so many people continued to use the quill well into the 19th century, even though the fountain pen was seen as a symbol of wealth and culture. It wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that the fountain pen really took off. The invention of the steel nib in the early 1800s made fountain pens more affordable for the average person. And then, in 1859, a man named Lewis Waterman invented the first modern fountain pen. His pen featured a capillary action feed system that drew ink up from the reservoir at a constant rate, which solved one of the biggest problems of the fountain pen. Before this, users had to constantly dip their feathers in ink, interrupting their flow and leaving blotches on the page. But with Waterman's invention, the pen would flow continuously, allowing the user to write faster and more accurately. By the turn of the century, fountain pens were being used all over the world, especially in the United States, Great Britain, France, and Germany. They were considered to be the height of writing instrument technology and were often passed down as heirlooms. But change was just around the corner. In 1874, the first commercially successful typewriter, the Scholes and Glidden typewriter, hit the market. It didn't look anything like the typewriters of today, but it did feature a keyboard, and this changed everything. Typewriters were expensive at first, costing around $125, the modern equivalent of around $3,500. But as the years went on, they became cheaper and more reliable. By the 1920s, almost every office in America had at least one typewriter, and many families had one at home. This led to the widespread adoption of keyboards as the preferred method of writing. And while fountain pens and typewriters are largely relics of the past today, they serve as a reminder of how far writing has come. Who knows what the next 150 years will bring? Maybe we'll all be writing with light beams from our fingertips. Well, probably not, but it's fun to think about. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and leave a comment below. What writing tool do you use the most? Until next time, thanks for watching.